I watched The Ship of Theseus. I watched it like 2 hours ago, and it's still fresh in my mind. I'm trying to not. Um, I'm gonna try not to like spoil the movie, but I might just end up spoiling the movie. I don't want to limit myself like that. So it just made me really think about my own mortality. I just there's some memories and some lines that just stick with you, you know, in your brain like a permanent tattoo. And I feel like this movie is like that because in this one it was just really different. The way it was shot, it felt like it was shot on a phone or like a really low budget, you know, camera, like low budget equipment. The sound was good, but yeah, it just felt somehow closer to something like I could make with the equipment I have, or with the kind of equipment that my friends have, you know. Yet it had something so beautiful. Most of the times we try to reject mortality, and that's just not it. So many times, you know, we we try to make up so many things like religion and just plunge into the faith we have in religion or whatever philosophy we believe in. But sometimes just things happen that make you realize your own mortality, and something that's a lot more defining than what religion could ever strive to be. You know, in this movie, this man faces a near death experience brought by him, brought onto himself by himself, and somehow that belief that he was clinging on to, he just lets go, and he realizes that he needs to do more in life to achieve what he actually wants to do. You know, let's talk about music instead. Um, I was trying to think about what could evolutionary like what could be the evolutionary reason that we really like music. Like, how does it come to us? Like, is it like, does god music sound like eating food, or like animals dying, or like sex or some shit? Because somehow a lot of our likings are tied to our you know evolutionary growth. The reason we like having food is because through food we live more and we evolve and we can produce more of ourselves. you know we discussed this with I discussed this with Abhik and Rudra about unboxing, like why do we like unboxings. And maybe it could be similar to like opening a fruit or something. But why do we like music? I mean, it's been a part of society for like a really large time, but maybe it brings people together in a way. Like, just tribes playing music together, like gives you a sense of togetherness and relatability somehow. But it's crazy how it's evolved to be so personal, because you know the way it is right now, music is a lot personal than more of a gathering thing. Like yes, party music exists and you can have fun with that, but a lot of it comes from like personal experiences and just a lot of introspective memories. Some music can remind you of memories you've had that you haven't uncovered in a long time. A lot of it could come from the fact that you listened to that music back then, and somehow the lyrics really matter to you, or like really relate to you. The crazy part being, in this movie, there's there's times when there's a lot of music and just music, and I think somehow it's not the music that makes me emotionally invested or like makes me cry. It was in the end, it wasn't the cinematography or the music that was defining to me. I think it was what it tried to portray through the stories that were told. Because in the end, it's just a bunch of caves and like a person who's like shakily handling the camera and looking around a cave. But in the end, it still felt like there was a lot of emotional heaviness to what was going on. And I would like seriously recommend you to watch that movie because it can just change the way you completely it can completely change the way you think about things. You know, another one that I watched recently was a movie called My Dinner with Andre, and it's crazy, but people love hearing their own opinions said by someone else. I think maybe that's why I really like the movie because this director, right? Okay, this is gonna have like kind of spoilers, but it's like impossible to spoil the movie because there's so much conversation happening that I can't possibly spoil this movie. But he talks about both of the movies talk about hedonism in a way, how they don't portray it in a positive or negative way. They just point towards it. Like yeah, it exists. Hedonism exists, and this is how the characters react to it and behave towards it. The protagonist usually is against it, but that doesn't matter because sometimes the protagonist also suffers a lot. It's crazy how society has become this entire thing, this phenomena where a lot of people just follow an idea that doesn't that isn't real. Think about this. If you somehow want to break like a small policy of really huge company like say McDonald's, like let's say you bring in um, your pet dog into McDonald's, right? And they say, "Oh, sir, you can't bring your dog here." And you ask them, "Why can't I bring my dog here?" And they'll say, "Because it's our company policy." And I'm like, "Okay, but are you okay with the dog?" And they might be. And if they are, they'll say, "Yeah, but I might get fired from the job." Okay, but who's handling your job, right? You go one level above. Most people don't hate dogs. So say you go to the manager and the manager somehow you have this time, right? And the manager says, "Yeah, I'm fine with the dog, but my boss, you know, he'll fire me." The funny part is the more you keep going up this chain, somehow it's lost between the dog entering McDonald's and this upper power, this idea of company policy. Like McDonald's itself is just an idea in people's head. Yeah, it's because the owners don't even sometimes, like, they don't even own the entire company. They're just stakeholders, right? There's like a board, and the board does not care if you bring a dog in or not. If they see a dog brought into McDonald's, they would not they would not care. They would just say, okay, fine. So who are we so scared of? What is this idea that we have created that people are so scared of? Think about this. We have social media like Facebook and Twitter and all of that, right? But the people who created these things, they themselves are not they themselves are not immune to their own creations, you know. So many people depend on this data hoarding, privacy invading way of earning money that now they can't themselves escape it. It's like a snake biting its own tail, except it doesn't even realize it's doing that. It's crazy. I remember watching this guy, the I think like the CEO of Pinterest or something, keeping his phone away, because he himself was addicted to like Reddit and Pinterest at the point. I mean, you create these things to, steal, not steal, but somehow harvest information and therefore money from other people by selling ads, but you yourself are not like immune to it. Your own data is probably a lot more collected and handled than the average person who's on social media. It's kind of really crazy to think about, and that's why I don't use it. I mean, there's a lot of reasons not to use social media if you really think about it. A lot of people still do, but that's fine. I mean, I would like if they did not, people close to me, but somehow it makes them feel connected, which is kind of weird because the way it works is it makes you feel like you have friends and you're around them even though you're not. And I think deleting the app is one of the best things I just did to myself. Deleting Instagram from my phone was a good decision, I would say, because it kind of makes you realize how many friends you actually have and how many people actually do care for you. Some people will just talk to you because of the dopamine it gets them, you know. They'll reply to your stories or posts because they feel like if you reply back, they will feel good. They'll feel like they have another friend, another person to talk to. Look at how many people I'm talking to. Look at how many notifications I have. But in the end, if you let's say end up leaving the platform, will they switch for you? I have like five people who I asked to switch, and they did. I mean, they didn't exactly have to switch. Everyone uses WhatsApp, but they did still change the way they communicate with me, like the program through which they communicate with me, taking time out of their daily schedule to leave their social media app that gives them dopamine to talk to me signifies that they actually want to interact with me, and it's not just for their own gain, but sometimes some people actually do care, and that is what is more important than people who just reply to your stories and only exist on these platforms, and somehow the moment it's not there, they stop existing, they go out of your mind. I mean, it's crazy how many benefits it can offer, and yet people don't do it. I remember I used to say that it was good to be on social media, and I didn't exactly have a reasoning when when your thoughts are in a gray area, you tend to conform to other people's beliefs. You know, when you don't think for yourself, you tend to conform because conforming is easier than not. But a crazy part being, after making your mind, you might end up not conforming, and some people might not like that, but you will be a lot happier if you realize that you have formed your own stand and opinion on it without any outside suggestion. And external influences aren't bad. In fact, you cannot escape external influence. It's just that simply having external influence define an opinion can tend to be harmful because you don't know why, and it can lead to just a whole lot of doubt and confusion when asked why. Like, if someone asked me why I like Instagram, when I used to, or like why I use it, I would just say, oh, because it's fun, or whatever shallow answer I would get, and it would always be different, right? Because it makes me feel connected to my friends, and I feel like I feel really good when I use Instagram, especially when like people reply to me, and it's good for branding and socializing. But now that I don't, and I have my own stand on it, I can just simply say why I don't. And that's why it's important to be polarizing. Okay. The moment you are polarizing, people naturally tend to be more interested in you. But that's not why you should do it, obviously. You should be polarizing because gaining knowledge and then forming an opinion can make you feel a lot better and a lot clear minded than before. Living in grey clouds does not leave you with fulfillment. I mean, it's literally a sort of brain fog if you really think about it. We live in such a grey world right now that, in spite of living in such a world, we try to divide things into black and white, but they cannot be black and white. You can't just tell me to not use my phone, even if it's harmful to me, because some things are not harmful on the phone. It has great advantages too. Almost a lot of modern things can have benefits and their own consequences. A lot of the times, the things that feel good, we try to ignore the consequences or deny them. Like, say, hooking up with people, or, you know, eating unhealthy food. They are inherently appealing, but also in some ways harmful to your mental health or physical health. The thing is, a lot of people do know that, but they don't know how much it affects them. A lot of people don't know how much junk food affects them. How much getting into casual relationships can affect them. It can leave you with mental scars that sometimes you cannot hide. So it's better to preserve your own peace. At least it works great for me to only tell this to people I really think are gonna listen, because it's really difficult to escape your own innate tendencies for gratification and just let go of them for, you know, the greater good. Because the greater good is, a lot of it is based on logic and, sometimes research or studies on whatever. But also people, it's a lot of the times it's not explained how consequential instant gratification can be to your mental health, because it's like drops in the water, right? Except you can't see how much it's filling up. I can't articulate how much if effect it had on me being on Discord for 2 years, just talking the entire day. I cannot explain, you know, like it's difficult to explain how much watching not safe for work content can change your entire mind to a lot of things in the real world. What you consume can really affect what you consume, because you consume what you consume. You you take in things from the world, and then the world feeds you the same things again and again and again. I remember I wanted to research about graffiti and, just find out more about graffiti, just because it's cool. And I realized there's a lot of graffiti in Pune. A lot of graffiti in Pune. Everywhere I look now, I see graffiti. And it was always there, but I just did not look. I did not look. Sometimes there's so many things that repeat and exist in and on, like, in themselves, but we don't tend to notice them because we only consume things that we already do know about. You know, if I didn't start listening to, say, rock music, I would never listen to rock music because I only consumed what I already did. I would keep listening to like rap or R&B. Isn't that the reason why talking to people that are not out, like inside your own social circle, and in your, like, even in your area or mutuals, but just talking to random people, important, because through that you realize how much you have been missing out on. If I didn't realize how much graffiti there is because of a friend, I would probably never notice. That's why doing random things is important, I guess. Just going down like a rabbit hole and coming out of it just knowing a lot more about things. I think it's really interesting that some people just know a lot about very minute details, and I feel like a lot of people think that I'm, that I do that, because I have a lot of information about such niche things sometimes. Like, you could ask me about a specific earphone model, and I would just say, oh yeah, I know about this, and, like, the what ohms are good, and what driver it has, and, like, what is better and why it is. And some parts of that information are just left unknown to people unless they ask. Sometimes some people, like, sometimes I just know things, and they only, like, these things only come out when I'm asked. Like, if I'm talking to an artist and we talk about art for like a lot of time, and somehow in some random way they mention like programming, You know, I could go on an entire different tangent on programming, but they just don't ask. That's why it's difficult. Sorry, that's why it's important to ask questions that are open ended, because then people can actually like give answers that are more unexpected. If I ask, oh yeah, what paints do you use? It's kind of a binary question, because I would answer like oil paints or like watercolor. But if I ask like, how do you make your art? Something that is so open ended and so vague that the person then decides how to answer it. I might just say, oh yeah, for me, programming is art. And that can go to like a completely different conversation. It's just things like that. Things like asking questions that are like good and open ended, so that they are the ones who can choose to answer the way they want, rather than extremely specific questions, because extremely specific questions can just have binary answers, and binary answers can make the conversation boring. Do you like donuts? Yes, no, that's it. But what is your favorite bakery item, and why? Really makes you think like, oh wait, why do I like donuts? I just do. Like, waffles are good, by the way. I keep rambling on, and I like rambling on. um I wanted to talk about why Kanye West is such an amazing artist. I just really like his music. I mean, he just does what he does. I haven't seen a person so polarizing. I mean, um, like he does say some things that are like really against, not against, but in a lot of like eyes, just against humanity, like Nazism and racism. And it's true, because you should not, I don't promote racism or something. But wait, why is there a but? Yeah, I don't promote racism. Also, Kanye West is, for me, an artist in a really true sense, because he just says what he wants to say without somehow caring for external opinion or validation. Or at least that is how it feels like. Some lyrics off of his tracks are just so funny. The one about, focusing on two things at the same time, or, just a lot of funny lyrics that are intertwined with extremely like hard hitting and heavy stories and lyricism and philosophies. Somehow, this man has managed to entertain people at the same time, try to spark and discuss really like sensitive topics like slavery sometimes, or suicide and guilt and mistakes and murder. At the same time, having like different connotations and just humor intertwined within the lyrics. So I don't even care about what he does believe in, or like what his political beliefs are, because that does not cater to how his music is. I mean, obviously it does affect his music, but the music that he had before that does not seem to mention it. And even if it does, like, are you really gonna like turn into this, believe into like a different political ideology based on like a few tracks? Hopefully not. I obviously respect not listening to it, because because it can preach the wrong things. But when does music ever preach the right things, anyways, right? Like, think about it. A lot of music is just about drugs and consumerism and sex and all of that. but the beat goes hard and I ball so hard. What I'm trying to say is do the hard work, especially when you feel like it. When you don't feel like it,